It had been 2 long years since that fateful day at the beach, but the memory still clung to me like a shadow that refused to fade with the setting sun. I, Freya, carried it everywhere. Through the quiet mornings in the kitchen, the empty evenings when Phoenix was still at work, and the sleepless nights when guilt wrapped itself around my chest like a heavy chain. Some moments, they say, haunt you forever. This one did more than haunt me. It had rewritten my entire life. My name is Freya. I am 38 years old, married for over 15 years to Phoenix, a man who once promised me the world but slowly gave me only silence and distance. We have 2 children, Leonard, who is now 18, and his little sister Isa, who is 10. On the outside, we looked like the perfect family. Nice house in a quiet neighborhood, 2 cars in the driveway, school events attended, and holiday cards sent every year. But inside those walls, the cracks had been growing for years. Invisible to everyone except me, Phoenix's job had always come first. In the beginning, I admired his dedication. He was ambitious, driven, the kind of man who wanted to provide everything for his family. Late nights at the office, weekend meetings, business trips that stretched longer than planned. I told myself it was all for us. For the beautiful house, for the children's education, for the future we were building together. But after more than a decade, the excuses started to feel hollow. The overtime became normal. The missed dinners became routine. The nights when he came home too tired to even look at me properly became our everyday reality. I had become invisible in my own marriage. That particular morning, 2 years ago, started like so many others. The sun was already bright when I stood in the kitchen, packing a small cooler with sandwiches, cold drinks, and fresh fruit for the beach. Phoenix rushed past me, briefcase in hand, hair still damp from his quick shower. He planted a quick, mechanical kiss on top of Isa's head as she sat eating her cereal. "Sorry, Freya," he said without really looking at me. "Something important came up at the office. I can't make it to the beach today. You and Leonard go ahead." I nodded, the familiar tightness forming in my throat. I had stopped arguing years ago. What was the point? He would promise to make it up later, and later never came. "It's okay," I replied softly, forcing a smile for Isa's sake. "We'll manage." Leonard was 16 then, tall for his age, lanky, with the same deep brown eyes as his father, but a gentler face, softer features that still carried the innocence of boyhood, even as his body was changing into that of a young man. He didn't say much when I told him it would be just the 2 of us. He simply shrugged, grabbed the beach bags, and helped load the car without complaint. I glanced at him in the passenger seat as we drove, earbuds in, staring out at the passing scenery. My heart ached a little. He was growing up so fast, and sometimes I feared that if I blinked, I would lose him too, just like I had already lost parts of Phoenix. The drive to the beach felt longer than usual. My mind kept drifting back to the early years of our marriage. Phoenix and I used to do everything together. Spontaneous weekend getaways, late-night movie marathons on the couch, dancing in the kitchen while cooking. He used to look at me like I was the only woman in the world. His touch used to set my skin on fire. Now, even when he was physically present, he felt miles away. I couldn't remember the last time he had really touched me with desire. The last time he had asked how I was feeling beyond the surface level. "How was your day?" I was so tired of being invisible. When we finally arrived, the beach was beautiful, but not overly crowded. We found a relatively quiet spot near the water. Leonard helped me spread out the large beach towels while I set up the umbrella to give us some shade. The sun was hot, almost too hot, but I welcomed it. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe a little. No work calls for Phoenix pulling him away, no school runs, no endless list of chores. Just the sound of waves and the warmth on my skin. We settled in. I lay down on my stomach on the towel, letting the heat seep into my tired muscles. After a few peaceful minutes, I reached for the bottle of sunscreen oil. "Leonard," I called softly, not lifting my head, "can you help me rub this on my back? I can't reach it properly." He paused for a second, almost hesitant before taking the bottle from my hand. "Sure, Mom." I closed my eyes as he knelt beside me. His hands were gentle at first, cautious, almost unsure, the way they used to be when he was a little boy, helping me with small tasks. The oil felt cool against my warm skin as he started on my shoulders, spreading it in slow, careful circles. It reminded me of when he was small, holding my hand to cross the street, his tiny fingers wrapped around mine. "You can press a little harder," I murmured. my voice muffled against the towel. "It's okay." He listened. His hands grew firmer, moving down my back with more confidence. The rhythm was soothing. For the first time in years, someone was touching me with care. Even if it was just my son applying sunscreen, I let myself relax into it, enjoying the simple human contact I had been starved of for so long. Phoenix hadn't touched me like this in ages, gentle, attentive, present. But then something shifted. His hand slid lower, slowly, carefully, tracing the curve of my lower back, moving toward the edge where my bikini bottom began. My breath caught in my throat. I should have said something right then. I should have told him that was enough, that he could stop. But no words came out. My mind raced with 1,000 thoughts, yet my body stayed completely still. He hesitated. I could feel the uncertainty in his touch, the way his fingers hovered near the boundary that should never be crossed. The air between us suddenly felt thick, charged with something I couldn't name or didn't want to name. And instead of stopping him, I whispered, "It's okay. You can rub there too." The words left my mouth before I could stop them. They hung in the hot air like something poisonous, something irreversible. As soon as I said them, a wave of shame washed over me, but I didn't take them back. I didn't move away. Leonard didn't speak. He didn't pull his hands away either. Slowly, carefully, his fingers continued lower, spreading the oil over areas that made my heart pound so loudly. I was sure he could hear it. I squeezed my eyes shut tighter, my mind screaming at me to stop this, to sit up, to laugh it off as a joke. But I didn't. I couldn't. A deep, lonely part of me, the part that had been starved of touch, of attention, of feeling desired for years, didn't want it to end. I let his hands linger there. I let the moment stretch far beyond what was innocent. And in that silence, under the blazing sun, with the sound of waves in the distance, something inside me cracked open. A line had been crossed, quietly, secretly, and nothing would ever be the same again. We didn't speak about it afterward, not on the beach, not during the drive home. Leonard went back to his earbuds. I stared at the road, my hands gripping the steering wheel too tightly, my skin still tingling where he had touched me. When we got home, I threw myself into normal routines, making dinner, asking about school, helping Issa with her homework. Phoenix came home late, tired as always, and noticed nothing. He kissed my cheek out of habit and disappeared into the living room. That night, as I lay in bed beside my sleeping husband, I stared at the ceiling for hours. My mind replayed every second of that afternoon. The way Leonard's hands had felt, the way my body had responded despite every voice in my head telling me it was wrong. The guilt was already there, heavy and suffocating. But so was something else, a dangerous, desperate spark of feeling alive again. I told myself it was a one-time mistake, a moment of weakness caused by years of loneliness. It would never happen again. I would make sure of it, but deep down, even then, I wasn't sure I believed my own words. The next morning, when Leonard came down for breakfast, our eyes met across the table for just a second longer than usual. There was something different in his gaze, something new, something I didn't want to name but couldn't ignore. He didn't say anything. Neither did I. Yet the shadow of that beach day had already begun to stretch across our lives, silent and unbreakable. The days after that first beach trip passed in a haze of forced normalcy. I woke up every morning determined to bury what had happened. I told myself it was nothing more than a momentary lapse, a mistake born out of years of emotional starvation and too much sun. Leonard was my son, my boy, the child I had carried, raised, and loved since the day he was born. Whatever line we had brushed against that afternoon had to be erased immediately. I would not let one weak moment destroy everything. But the shadow refused to disappear. At home, everything looked the same on the surface. I cooked meals, helped Issa with her school projects, did the laundry, and smiled at Phoenix when he finally dragged himself through the door late at night. He still noticed nothing. His world remained filled with deadlines, meetings, and the constant buzz of his phone. When he asked how my day was, it was out of habit, not genuine interest. I answered with the usual short replies. "Fine, busy. The kids are okay." He would nod, eat his reheated dinner, and disappear into his study or fall asleep on the couch. Leonard, however, was different. He didn't avoid me. If anything, he stayed closer. I would catch him watching me while I chopped vegetables in the kitchen, his eyes lingering a second too long. When I sat on the couch in the evenings reading a book, he would choose the seat nearest to me instead of going to his room like he used to. Small things, brushing past me in the hallway, offering to help carry groceries, asking if I needed anything, began to feel loaded with unspoken meaning. Neither of us mentioned the beach. The silence around it grew heavier with every passing day. I tried to fight it. I really did. I started going for long walks alone in the evenings. I signed up for an online yoga class just to keep my mind and body occupied. I even tried initiating more conversation with Phoenix one night, wearing the perfume he used to like, hoping to spark anything in him. He kissed my forehead, said I looked nice, and then went back to answering emails. The rejection stung deeper than usual, because now I had something else to compare it to. The memory of Leonard's hands on my skin. By the following weekend, the house felt suffocating. Phoenix announced another Saturday shift. Issa was invited to a friend's birthday sleepover. It was just Leonard and me again. The silence in the house pressed down on me until I couldn't breathe. "It's going to be hot again," I said casually over breakfast. Not meeting his eyes. "Maybe we should go back to the beach. Just to get out of the house." Leonard looked up from his phone. For a moment, something flickered in his expression. Surprise. Nervousness, maybe even hope. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, okay." The drive this time was quieter than before. No earbuds. Leonard sat with his hands on his knees, staring out the window, his leg bouncing slightly. I kept my eyes on the road, but my mind was racing. Part of me hoped the open air and the waves would wash away the tension. Another part, the darker, lonelier part, wondered what would happen if we found ourselves alone again. When we reached the beach, it was even quieter than last time. The weekday crowd had thinned out, leaving long stretches of sand almost empty. We set up our towels in the same general area, closer to the water this time. I spread mine out and lay down on my stomach without saying anything about sunscreen. I couldn't bring myself to ask again. Instead, I closed my eyes and tried to focus on the sound of the sea, the warmth of the sun, the salty breeze. But I could feel him watching me. Even with my eyes shut, I knew his gaze was on my body. The bikini I had chosen that day was the same one from before, simple, modest enough for a mother, yet now it felt dangerously exposing. The heat on my skin mixed with the heat of his attention. My heart started beating faster. I told myself to get up, to suggest we go for a swim, to break the moment. But I stayed still. After almost an hour, the sun became too intense. Sand stuck to our skin, and we decided to rinse off at the outdoor beach showers before heading back. The showers were in a somewhat secluded area, partially hidden by a low concrete wall and some overgrown plants. Leonard went first. I stood a few steps away, watching as the cool water ran down his back and shoulders. His wet t-shirt clung to his developing muscles. He had grown so much in the last year, taller, broader, no longer just a boy. Something inside me stirred. Before I could talk myself out of it, I stepped closer and slipped into the shower area beside him. The water was cold, a sharp contrast to the blazing sun. I pulled off my loose cover-up, leaving me in just my bikini. Leonard turned his head, surprised. His eyes widened slightly, but he didn't move away. I looked at him, my voice barely above the sound of the running water. "You should take off your shorts too, so you can rinse properly." The words felt heavy, wrong, and yet they came out anyway. Leonard hesitated for only a second. Then, without speaking, he hooked his thumbs into his waistband and slid his wet shorts down, stepping out of them. He stood there in just his swim trunks underneath, but the meaning was clear. We were both nearly undressed, standing close together under the same stream of water. I turned my back to him, my pulse thundering in my ears. "Help me with my back again," I whispered. He stepped closer. His hands, still tentative but less unsure than before, touched my shoulders. The water made everything slick. He spread his palms over my skin, rubbing away the sand and salt. Slowly, his hands moved lower, tracing the same path they had taken the first time. When they reached my lower back, I didn't stop him. Instead, I leaned back slightly, pressing closer to his body. The air around us thickened. The sound of the water drowned out everything except the rush of blood in my ears. I could feel the warmth of him behind me, the tension in his arms, the way his breathing had changed. My own body was betraying me, skin tingling, breath shallow. I reached behind me, took his hands in mine, and slowly guided them upward, over my waist, until they rested on my chest. Leonard froze for a fraction of a second. Then he didn't pull away. What happened next was a blur of desperation and need. It wasn't planned. It wasn't gentle or romantic. It was raw, urgent, born from years of loneliness on my side and confused teenage desire on his. under the cascading water, with the beach almost empty around us. We crossed the line completely. His hands explored where they never should have. My body responded in ways I had forgotten it could. There were no words, only gasps, touches, and the overwhelming feeling of finally being seen, wanted, touched after so long. When it was over, we stood there, water still pouring over us, breathing hard. Leonard wrapped his arms around me from behind and held me tightly, his face pressed against my wet hair. For a few moments, I let myself be held like that, like a woman, not just a mother or a wife. It felt terrifying and intoxicating at the same time. We didn't speak as we dried off and packed our things. The walk back to the car was silent, heavy with what we had just done. I kept stealing glances at Leonard. His face was flushed, his movements stiff and awkward. He looked shocked, guilty, and yet there was something else in his eyes, something like hunger. In the car, the silence stretched until it became unbearable. About halfway home, Leonard finally spoke, his voice low and uncertain. "Mom, what happened back there?" I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my knuckles turning white. I wanted to lie. I wanted to say it was nothing, a mistake, that we should forget it. But the truth spilled out instead. "I don't know," I whispered. "I really don't know." We drove the rest of the way in complete silence. When we reached the house, Phoenix's car wasn't there yet. Isa was still at her sleepover. Before I could even open the driver's door, Leonard leaned across the seat and kissed me. It started hesitant, almost afraid I would push him away. But I didn't. I kissed him back. The kiss deepened quickly, turning desperate. His hands moved over me with a boldness that surprised me. Right there in the driveway, hidden partially by the evening shadows, we lost control again. It was frantic, passionate, and filled with the same lonely hunger. When we finally pulled apart, both of us were breathing heavily. We went inside without speaking. The moment the front door closed behind us, the dam broke completely. What had started at the beach showers continued in the living room, then moved to my bedroom, Phoenix's and my bed. It was wrong in every possible way. Every touch carried guilt, but the guilt only seemed to fuel the intensity. For the first time in years, I felt desired. I felt alive. And Leonard? He looked at me like I was the center of his world. That night, after everything, I lay awake beside my sleeping husband when he finally came home late. Leonard was in his own room down the hall. My body still hummed with the aftershocks of what we had done. Guilt coiled in my stomach like a snake, but so did a terrifying truth. I didn't want to stop. The days that followed became a dangerous dance. Leonard found every excuse to be near me, helping in the kitchen, watching movies together when Phoenix was away, brushing against me accidentally when no one was looking. I told myself repeatedly that I had to end it, that this was destroying our family, that Leonard deserved a normal life and I owed loyalty to my husband and daughter. But every time he looked at me with those soft brown eyes full of need and longing, every time his hand touched mine secretly, I felt the same emptiness inside me echo back at him. We were both lonely in our own ways, and in each other, we had found something that filled that void. No matter how forbidden it was, I knew it couldn't last. Secrets like this have a way of cracking open and destroying everything in their path. Phoenix still saw nothing. Isa remained innocent and unaware, but I could feel the cracks spreading wider every single day. And the scariest part? A part of me didn't want to fix them. The weeks that followed the second beach trip turned into a secret life I never imagined I would live. What started as a single moment of weakness under the hot sun and cool shower, water had become something far more dangerous and ongoing, consuming reality that I could neither control nor fully regret. Leonard and I had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed, and instead of pulling back in horror, we kept stepping deeper into the shadows together. During the day, our house looked exactly like it always had. Phoenix left early for work and returned late, exhausted and distant. Isa chattered about school, her friends, and her latest drawings. I continued my role as the perfect wife and mother, packing lunches, attending parent-teacher meetings, cooking dinner, and smiling through it all. But beneath the surface, everything had changed. Leonard and I had become bound by a silent, electric tension that hummed whenever we were alone. He was always finding reasons to be near me. If Phoenix was working late and Isa was playing in her room, Leonard would come into the kitchen while I washed dishes. He would stand behind me, close enough that I could feel the heat of his body. His hands would slide around my waist, his lips brushing the back of my neck. "Mom," he would whisper, his voice low and full of the same need I felt burning inside me. I would try to resist for a few seconds, whispering, "We can't." Not now, but my body always betrayed me. I would turn in his arms, and the kiss that followed would be hungry, desperate, as if we had been starving for each other all day. At night, after Phoenix had fallen asleep beside me, I would lie awake staring at the ceiling, guilt twisting in my chest like a knife. I could hear Leonard moving quietly in his room down the hall. Sometimes he would text me from his phone, simple messages that made my heart race. "I can't stop thinking about you," or "Are you awake?" I knew I should delete them, should put my phone away and force myself to sleep. Instead, I would slip out of bed when Phoenix's breathing became deep and steady. And I would go to Leonard's room. Those stolen moments in the darkness were the most terrifying and exhilarating of all. We had to be completely silent. One wrong sound could wake Phoenix or Isa. Yet the risk only made everything more intense. Leonard's hands, which had once been hesitant and gentle on the beach, had grown bolder. He touched me with a mixture of teenage eagerness and surprising tenderness, as if he understood how fragile this secret was. I taught him things I never should have, guided his hands and his body, all while biting my lip to keep from making any noise. Afterward, we would lie together for a few stolen minutes, his head on my chest, my fingers running through his hair. In those quiet moments, he would whisper, "I love you, Mom," not just like a son. And I would hold him tighter, whispering back words I had no right to say. The guilt never left me. It was constant, heavy, crushing. Every time I looked at Phoenix across the dinner table, I felt sick. He still suspected nothing. He would talk about work, complain about his boss, ask Isa about her day, and occasionally glance at Leonard and say something like, "How's school, son?" Leonard would answer normally, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he avoided meeting his father's eyes for too long. I wondered how Phoenix could be so blind. How could he not notice the way Leonard looked at me now, or the way I sometimes flushed when our son entered the room? Isa remained completely innocent. She was still my little girl, demanding hugs, asking me to braid her hair, and telling me about the boys she thought were cute at school. Every time she called me Mommy and climbed into my lap, a fresh wave of shame washed over me. What kind of mother was I becoming? What kind of example was I setting? I would hold her close and promise myself that this had to stop, for her sake, for all of our sakes. But then night would fall again. Phoenix would be absent even when he was home, and the loneliness would pull me back toward Leonard like a magnet. One evening, the tension finally exploded in a way that nearly shattered everything. Phoenix had called to say he would be working very late, some big project deadline. Isa had gone to bed early after a long day at school. Leonard and I were in the kitchen. I was standing at the sink rinsing plates when I felt him come up behind me. His arms wrapped around my waist, and this time there was no hesitation. His hands moved up, cupping my breasts through my thin house shirt as he pressed himself against my back. "Leonard." "Wait," I breathed, but my voice lacked conviction. "I can't wait," he whispered against my ear, his breath hot. "I need you, Mom, right now." Before I could respond, he turned me around and kissed me hard, pushing me gently back against the counter. The dishes were forgotten. His hands were everywhere, sliding under my shirt, tugging at my clothes with urgent need. I knew we were taking a huge risk. Phoenix could come home any minute. Isa could wake up and come downstairs for water. But the danger, mixed with the overwhelming desire, made me lose control completely. We didn't even make it to the bedroom. Right there in the kitchen, under the dim light, we gave in to the passion that had been building for weeks. It was intense, reckless, and filled with whispered words we had no business saying to each other. When it was over, we stood there breathing heavily, half-dressed, staring at each other in the sudden silence. The reality of where we were hit me like cold water. I quickly straightened my clothes, my hands shaking. "We can't keep doing this," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "It's too dangerous. If your father finds out..." Leonard looked at me, his eyes dark with emotion. "But I don't want to stop. You make me feel everything. Dad never sees you the way I do. He doesn't appreciate you. I do." His words cut deep because they were true. Phoenix had stopped seeing me years ago. Leonard saw me, really saw me. He made me feel beautiful, desired, and alive in a way my husband hadn't in over a decade. That truth was what made this so impossible to end. We tried to be more careful after that night. We limited ourselves to moments when we were absolutely sure no one would interrupt. Quick touches in the hallway when Phoenix was in the shower. Stolen kisses in the laundry room. Late-night visits that lasted only as long as we dared. But the more we tried to control it, the stronger the pull became. Leonard started acting differently around the house. More confident. More possessive in small ways. He would text me during the day from school, telling me what he wanted to do to me when he got home. I would delete the messages immediately, but not before reading them multiple times, my body responding against my will. 2 years have passed since that first day on the beach, and the secret is still intact. On the surface, our family looks normal. Phoenix still works long hours, still comes home tired, still treats me with the same distant politeness. Issa is growing up beautifully, full of life and laughter. Leonard has turned 18 now. He looks more like a young man than a boy, and sometimes when I watch him, my heart aches with both love and terrible regret. I still don't know how this will end. Every day I tell myself that I have to stop, that I am destroying my son's future, my marriage, and my own soul. I have tried to create distance, suggesting Leonard join a sports team after school, encouraging him to spend more time with friends, even trying to rekindle something with Phoenix by planning a family vacation. But nothing works. The moment Leonard and I are alone, the fire reignites. He looks at me with those same brown eyes, and I melt. He touches me, and I forget every promise I made to myself. The guilt is my constant companion. It wakes me up at night. It follows me through the day. Sometimes I look at my reflection in the mirror and barely recognize. The woman staring back, the woman who once believed she was a good mother, a loyal wife. Now I am someone who carries an unbreakable secret, a woman who found love and desire in the most forbidden place possible. I don't know if I can fix this. I don't know if I even want to anymore. Leonard has become my escape from the emptiness that Phoenix created. In his arms, I feel seen, wanted, and whole again. But I also know that secrets like this eventually come to light. One day, Phoenix might notice the way Leonard looks at me. One day, Issa might walk in at the wrong moment. One day, the guilt might become too heavy to carry. When that day comes, everything we have built will crumble. Our family will break apart in ways that can never be repaired. Leonard's future will be scarred. Issa will lose the mother she trusts. Phoenix will be destroyed by betrayal from the two people he never suspected. And yet, even knowing all this, when Leonard comes to me in the quiet hours of the night and whispers my name like a prayer, I still open my arms to him. This is my unbreakable secret. This is the shadow that haunts me every single day. This is the price I pay for feeling alive again after years of invisibility. If you are listening to my story, please understand this is not a confession seeking forgiveness. It is a warning. Loneliness can push a person to places they never thought they would go. It can make you blind to right and wrong. It can make you trade everything you once held sacred for a few moments of feeling wanted. I don't know how this story ends, but I know it cannot end well. And still, I cannot stop.